Hi, Doug Davidoff here. I'm the founder and CEO at Imagine Business Development. While I don't always like to admit it, I've been working with growth-focused businesses for more than 30 decades. I've delivered hundreds of concepts, written thousands of blogs, generated hundreds of viewpoint documents, white papers, quick study guides, delivered hundreds of webinars, hundreds of speeches to executives, marketers, and salespeople across the United States, Canada, and even Mexico and Europe. For all of the concepts that I've shared over all this time, I can boil down the keys to building a strong, repeatable, sustainable, and scalable customer and revenue acquisition process to 7 key pillars. I call this the 7 pillars of smart growth, and I'd like to share my 30 years of experience boiled down into these 7 pillars with you now. The first is, when we think about selling, when we think about sales, making a sale is not really making one sale. It's making 3 distinct sales. I like to call this the 3-sale mindset. The trouble that selling organizations and growth organizations get into is that we focus 90–95% of our attention in most cases to only the 3rd sale, why people should buy from us. But you see, that's not really where the sale is made. The sale is made in sale 1. It's been said, no pain, no problem, no sale. And if that's the case, we need to acknowledge that the first sale is establishing that there is a problem, but not just that there's a problem, defining what that problem is. You see, there's nothing as predictable to how someone or a group of people will behave than in how they define their situation, how they define their problem or their opportunity. So sale 1 is all about defining the problem, the cause of the problem, and deciding that the status quo is no longer viable, that change must occur. And you see, the deliverable, the close, if you will, from sale 1 is what we call the first level of intent, the intent to investigate. That leads to the 2nd sale, the best solution. How do we solve the problem that we've defined? Now, if we don't have a clear definition of the problem, it's going to be very hard to have a clear definition of the solution. And when there's not a clear definition of the problem, that leads to all the confusion and ambiguity that just drags down and creates friction throughout the entire sales process. Sale 2 is about defining the expectations. What is success? And what am I willing to do? What am I willing to invest? What resources am I willing to put forth? That leads to the 2nd level of intent, the intent to solve the problem. That's what leads to the 3rd sale. Who am I going to use to solve that problem? Remember, your opportunity to generate demand, to create demand, exists in sale 1. Your opportunity to build consensus is all about sale 2. Sale 3 should be a foregone conclusion if you build your smart growth process correctly. And let's think about that. Smart growth, what is it? It's all about being able to build a sustainable growth engine that delivers not only revenue growth, but profit growth and growth in the value of a business. It's about putting the odds in your favor. It's about playing to your strengths and your game. And when you're thinking about your approach to smart growth, realize that while there are 3 sales, there are also 3 distinct processes that lead to a smart growth engine. The first process is what we call demand generation. That's all about acquiring the intention and engagement of the people that you want to do business with. The 2nd process is the sales process. That's all about customer acquisition. That's about getting people to become customers. And the 3rd process is customer success. And that's all about revenue acquisition. One of the mistakes that I see regularly made is that we conflate those 3 processes together when in fact they're distinct. They operate at different rhythms, they operate at a different pace, they have different key drivers. It is very much like a complex manufacturing process. If you manage it effectively for the whole, you'll get tremendous results. You'll drive tremendous profitability and consistency and predictability. But when you mess it all up, when you conflate them, when you have them working not the way they're supposed to work, that's where you build all kinds of disruption. You introduce all types of friction. And what's worse, the efforts that you take to improve the situation, the efforts that you take to increase your speed, actually reinforces the problem that you're facing. Now, let's think about growth for a second. It's tough, right? We as businesses work extraordinarily hard to generate the growth engine that we have. But I've noticed that we have a tendency to look at business growth like it's this separate and distinct thing from nature, right? There's a gravitational system that exists that has a tendency to pull us down. And if you're trying to grow a business, and if you're trying to grow your margin, and if you're trying to grow profitability, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about that gravitational system. Now, in the same way we talk about these three processes, let's understand that there's a physics to growth. You see, growing your business, growing your customer base isn't all that different from flying a plane. Right? Sometimes when I'm in a plane, and I fly a fair amount, I can't help but wonder, how did this happen? How did this multi-ton tube of steel with hundreds of people inside, how did it get to 35,000 feet where it flies so smoothly and so consistently? Then I realize it's fighting gravity, but it's not fighting gravity. It's taking advantage of the physics. It's taking advantage of a principle called lift. And the principle of lift simply says, if the velocity above your wing is greater than the velocity below the wing, if the velocity of the wind above is greater than the velocity of wind below, you'll create a vacuum. And you will create a lift. You will lift whatever it is in the air. The same thing that's true in flying a plane is true in growing a business. If we focus more velocity above the wing than below the wing, we'll generate lift. The question, though, is, well, what's the wing? Right? A business is an intangible thing. Customer acquisition, building your customer base, it's intangible. It's not a physical thing like a wing. So what is the wing in this context? And the wing is buying intent. You see, intent is this really, really interesting thing. The way we think and the way we behave before and after intent makes us, in essence, two distinctly different people. We're a Jekyll and Hyde pre and post intent. Now, while post intent is where all the sales occur, so it's certainly important, and it explains why there's so much energy pushing to identify post intent behaviors. The things that we ultimately have intent for, the things that actually drive our decision process, the things that drive how we conceive what that intent seeks, occurs before we have intent. You see, it's a fascinating communication law that people are far more open to influence when they're not thinking about doing something than they are when they've decided to do something. So it's really important that we understand the role of intent in generating a smart growth, consistent, predictable, and scalable approach to growth. You see, here's the challenge with intent. When we start our business, and well, frankly, when we're not exercising a smart growth strategy, if we do something good enough, we'll generate opportunities. And what you'll find is those first opportunities tend to have higher intent. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is the poorer your lead generation efforts, the poorer your behaviors are pre-intent, the more likely you are to pull a high intent audience. So by the time people are talking to your salespeople or they're engaged in whatever your sales process is, there's a high predisposition to buy. And we look at it and we say, well, we close 60% of the people we talk to. We close 80% of the people we talk to. Let's just talk to more people. Let's invest in inbound marketing. Let's invest in demand generation. Let's hire salespeople. Let's grow, grow, grow. This happens if you're a SaaS company and you start doing pay-per-click. Your pay-per-click leads are going to drive initially a higher yield of high intent. People who are already looking to do something. So you say, hey, let's do more pay-per-click. Same thing's true with sales development. Let's do more sales development. Let's add more prospecting, whatever the case may be. But you see, intent is a fairly structural thing. And what that means is that in any given market at any given time, there's typically no more than about 2 to 7% of the market that is at that intent stage, that is actually looking to do something. Right? And so as you increase the volume, as you increase your effort, what happens is you generate more leads, but much more of those leads, a higher and higher percentage of those leads, are not high intent. They're low intent to no intent. This is why as marketing generates leads and marketing generates a higher volume of leads, they turn them over to salespeople. Salespeople treat them just like they treated the high intent leads, and they come back and they say, these leads suck. And through the prism of, are you ready to buy? They do. What's interesting is those leads, those low intent leads that fit your ideal client profile are often the highest value. And by the way, if you want to lower your cost of customer acquisition, if you want to lower the cost of growth, if you want to increase your profitability relative to your growth rate, then you have to play in the game of pre-intent. But you can't treat leads with low intent the same way you treat leads with high intent. Right? It's a very simple formula for a sale. Engagement meets intent. I should add fit. Right? But when engagement, I can't buy from you if I'm not engaged with you. With intent, I'm not going to buy from you if I don't have intent to buy. That leads to a sale. Here's the question, and you need to decide which game are you playing. If you're generating engagement before intent, you are playing a demand generation game. If you generate engagement after intent, you're playing demand capture. Right? They are two distinctly different games. The mistake is when you try to mix that game, when you use demand generation, but you're playing the demand generation game, but you're really playing demand capture, or vice versa. Decide which game you're playing, and then play that game. Now, that's all about strategy. And I got to tell you, for years, I thought it was about strategy. I thought it was about get a great idea, or even a good idea, and match it with a great strategy. And so, for years, I was obsessed about strategy. But I learned something, and I learned it the hard way. Amateurs talk strategy. Professionals talk logistics. And here's how I know that. You can look at any strategy and any tactic, and I can find you, any good strategy and any good tactic. I can find you a company that is actually taking over the world with a similar strategy and tactics. But I can also show you companies that are eating dust with the same strategy and the same tactics. And it's not that, one's just remarkably better than the other. It's that amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics. And today, we are just obsessed with technology and stuff. The amount of sales technology and marketing technology is growing at a rate of absurdity. We've hired and have good people. We've invested in content and inbound marketing and tools and resources, and so we all have awesome content. And let me be clear, if you're not utilizing technology, or you don't have good people, or you don't have awesome content, then you are at a major disadvantage. But today, those things, they're just tickets to the ball game. They don't even get you on the playing field when it comes to driving smart growth. What drives smart growth? Well, it's the same thing that causes your car to perform. It's all about the engine. And we have built very weak engines. As a matter of fact, we paid very, very little attention to the engine and the plumbing, the design of the system that we're using. Plumbing is about building alignment. It's about understanding the real buyer's journey and then aligning your demand generation, your customer acquisition, and your revenue acquisition processes to be in alignment with how customers work, with how customers move forward in terms of making decisions. It's about building a manufacturing process into your customer acquisition and customer success strategies. That's what plumbing is all about. It's about making all the things that you're doing work better. Now, simply going to the market, telling people what you've learned, telling people what you know, and building what has commonly been called thought leadership, well, that's not enough. The next thing that I've learned is if you want to influence what people do and how they do it, which, well, if you want to make sales at strong margins, if you want to drive smart growth, then you're going to need to do that. It's not about thought leadership. It's about delivering insights. You see, thought leadership is all about the takeaway for the person who sees it being, wow, these people are really smart. Insights are about, wow, I'm wrong. You see, when you deliver an insight, you change the way people think about things. They begin to think differently. It opens up a hole. It opens up a loop that allows them to see things differently. It breaks open this tunnel vision that drives everything so we can begin to bring in new thoughts and new ideas that lead to changing the course and changing the speed of where and how we go. You see, thought leadership, again, that's an important piece, but it's merely a ticket to the ball game. Your content, whether it's written or verbal, needs to be done well. It needs to be authoritative. It needs to be interesting. It should be factual. Candidly, I don't know that it has to be factual anymore. It's a story for another day. And it should deliver through stories. Anecdotes are extraordinarily powerful. It's easy to understand and it represents a smart perspective. But if you don't break somebody's frame, if you don't change how somebody thinks about their situation, and this is not about how they think about you, this is changing how they think about them, how they think about their situation, then you're not really influencing. That doesn't mean you won't make sales, but what you'll see is you won't be valued as fully. You'll see your sales process drag a little bit more. You'll see more friction. You'll see more competitive pressure. Delivering insights means that you meet 5 criteria. The first thing about an insight is it's all about the customer. It's about their known, unknown, misunderstood problems and opportunities. It is about them. The second thing is it's relevant, important, and specific. Remember, relevance and importance is in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't matter if it's important to you. It matters if it's important to them. Relevant, important, and specific. Don't be general. Be specific. What are you doing wrong? What do you need to change? When I deliver workshops on how to create and deliver insights, one of the things that I point out is when you deliver an insight, you are politely and explicitly communicating that, to the person you're communicating with, that they are doing something wrong. An insight challenges your prospect's thinking. It challenges their existing viewpoint. It challenges their existing mental model. And it forces them to reframe the conversation. An insight should be designed to initiate or deepen an investigative journey, an investigative conversation. Right? An insight is not about why should I buy from you. An insight is why do I need to change? The insight is all about sale one. And the last piece is, this is the piece that connects to you, is that it connects to a strength or an advantage of your company. That's the commercial part of it. Right? Deliver insights. Stop focusing on thought leadership. Be specific, relevant, and clear. What does somebody need to change to generate or achieve the result that they're looking for? I used to coach college baseball, and I love talking about baseball, and I love talking about hitting. What you'll find with great hitters is that they understand something called swing mechanics. While every pitch is different and every situation is different, you'll find that they go through a consistent and repeatable process to maximize the probability of getting the outcome that they want. And the great ones do it well and they do it consistently, and the bad ones don't. The same is true when it comes to growing your business. The same is true when it comes to acquiring new customers. What I like to call the acquisition swing path. Now look, this manifests itself differently for different companies, and it's going to be dynamic. It's never going to be exactly the same. But what you're going to find is that every single sales opportunity that becomes a good sale for you is going to go through 7 distinct steps. You're going to have to generate attention and create a first action that's going to lead to a meaningful conversation. Now, that meaningful conversation could be active if you have a sales team. It could be passive in that, well, the conversation is actually the interchange on your website or some other medium. It connects to an important issue, what we like to call a high probability indicator. There's a commitment to investigate. That's the first level of intent. Then there's a commitment to solve. That's the second level of intent. A business case gets built and a decision gets made. Take a look at how you're going to market. Take a look at your marketing, demand generation, and sales strategies, tactics, and activities. And align those tactics along this swing path and build it to become repeatable and consistent. I should add dynamic, repeatable, consistent, and dynamic, but that repeatable and consistent is what builds the predictability, and it's what maximizes the probability of success for you. As you build that process, what you'll see is it will put you in a position where you have to take a solve for the customer, always create value mindset. Now, I hear people talk about value add and creating value all the time, and 95% of the time, I don't think it means anything. Let me tell you what my definition of creating value is. It simply means doing something that someone would be willing to pay more for. So if what you're doing isn't something someone would be willing to pay more for, then you're not creating value. Think about your last sales call. Is that something someone would have paid for? If the answer is no, you didn't create value. Think about your last blog post. Is that something someone would pay to get access to? Now you think, blogs, who would pay to get access to a blog? Everybody does. They pay with the most valuable currency out there, their time and their attention. Are you doing things that are worth paying for? Was your last email worth paying for? Would I have paid to be able to see it, to be able to be exposed to it? We have got to get away from this always be closing mindset and adopt an always be helping one. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Doug, this presentation should have been done 5-10 years ago. I'm off the ABCs. I'm off the Alec Baldwin, Glengarry Glen Ross, coffee is for closers. I'm an always be helping guy. I'm going to challenge you on that. I think it's highly likely, if you're watching this video, that is not true. And here's my proof. When you're thinking about your sales process, when you're thinking about your customer acquisition process, when you're thinking about your demand generation process, what is the goal? What is your goal? And I'll bet 95% of you, at least, the goal is to make a sale. How do we have to design this so that we can make a sale? And if your goal is to make a sale, you can call it whatever you want. You are an always be closing mindset. I don't care how many words you say. I don't care how much fluff you put on what you do. I don't care what your value statement is. If you're sitting down and solving for a sale, you're always be closing. The goal of an always be helping mindset is that a good decision gets made. A good mutual decision. You want smart growth? You want consistent, predictable growth? You want to grow your profits, your growth rate, and the value of your company? Stop solving for sales. Start solving for decisions. Now, taking this type of approach means we need to start thinking very, very differently. I've noticed that we live in a world today where we are obsessed with speed. I feel like we're all living a Talladega Nights Legend of Ricky Bobby life. I want to go fast. I want to go fast. I want to go fast. And we keep investing in speed, speed, speed. We're spending money on technology. We're spending money on more salespeople. We're spending money on artificial intelligence. We're spending money on the latest thinking of whatever. And yeah, we are damn sure going faster and faster and faster. But what's interesting is most of us, if we're lucky, aren't changing our velocity. And in most cases, we're actually slowing our velocity down. Think about it. Despite all of the new technologies, despite all of the new strategies, all of the new tactics, take a look at the average time salespeople spend selling. Take a look at the trend over the last 30 years and you will see it consistently go down. Take a look at conversion rates. You will see them consistently go down. Take a look at cost of customer acquisition. You will see it consistently go up. Take a look at economic value created. You will see it consistently come down. Right? We are running faster and faster and we're rising a higher and higher bar and we are not getting anywhere. You see, speed is about how fast are you moving. Velocity is about how long does it take you to get there. See, velocity and speed are the same thing, except velocity adds a vector to it. It adds a progress component to it. And here's the thing that's funny, and I've noticed it from the time I was young. The people that are the most successful at what they do tend to work slower than the people in the middle. And I used to think it was because they were good that they worked slow. And I've come to understand that's actually not true. It's because they focus on what's important. They focus on the key drivers. They focus on less is more. They drive far more progress with the steps, with the movements that they take. The people who are moving so fast, they're moving so fast that they can't pay attention to the vector. They can't pay attention to the progress. Focus on velocity. Let's summarize it. These are the 7 pillars of smart growth. Number 1, pay attention to the physics of growth. Build engagement before intent. Create lift. Number 2, understand the role of intent versus engagement. We need to generate engagement before there is intent if we want to accelerate our growth and lower the cost associated with doing that. Number 3, plumbing beats strategy. Every day of the week, twice on Sunday. 4, deliver insights. Where do your customers need to change? Not thought leadership. Number 5, focus on the customer acquisition sales swing path. Build a repeatable, predictable process to maximize the likelihood of success. Number 6, solve for the customer. Solve for the customer. Always create value. And last, focus on velocity over speed. That's it. Those are the 7 pillars. Those are the keys to everything we do at Imagine Business Development. If smart growth is something that intrigues you, we'd love to have a conversation. We'd love to be a resource. We've got free tools, inexpensive tools, fully scaled out, really expensive stuff that we can do for you. We want to help. If smart growth intrigues you, if you're looking to increase your velocity, let us know. Let us know how we can help. We look forward to our journeys coming together, and know if I can ever be of assistance, if I can ever help in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for paying attention.